Jacob Whitlow never imagined his life would revolve around fryer grease and fluorescent lights. He had once dreamed of architecture, not apron strings. But when his father, founder of a once vibrant fast casual restaurant chain, passed away unexpectedly, those dreams were buried alongside him. Left with a 16-location legacy, Jacob stepped into shoes that never quite fit. At first, he tried to honor his father's vision, showing up before sunrise, shadowing cooks, shaking hands with every new hire. But grief, paired with ambition, slowly pulled him away. He chose expansion over connection, spreadsheets over sweat. 5 years later, the company's balance sheets looked fine, but something beneath the surface was broken. Reports were inconsistent. Sales were steady, but employee surveys reeked of frustration. Words like neglected, unfair, and toxic started appearing. One store, buried deep in a forgotten strip mall on the south side of Indianapolis, had become a revolving door. 3 managers in 12 months, 0 retention. Jacob hadn't met a single face from that team, only skimmed their names on HR spreadsheets. So he made a choice, one that changed everything. He shaved his beard, ditched his tailored suit, and stepped into the world his employees lived in every day. Under the name Jay, he became the newest kitchen trainee, just another body in the back line. The moment he walked in, the air hit him like a wall, thick with fryer oil and tension. The shift led, a wiry man with a tired scowl and a neck tattoo blurred by time, eyed him skeptically. "New guy?" the man grunted. His name tag read, "Rick, kitchen manager." Jacob nodded, tugging down his cap. "Yeah, corporate's got me training here before I move to another store." Rick didn't bother with small talk. "Put your stuff in the back. Grab gloves. You're on prep." No welcome, no warmth, just orders. The kitchen pulsed with heat and pressure. Blenders whirred. Timers screamed. Jacob buried himself in the rhythm of chopping onions and refilling bins. But even as his hands moved, his eyes observed. Rick barked commands without lifting a finger. The staff, 5 in total, moved like shadows. 2 teenagers barely old enough to vote, a dishwasher who kept his eyes on the floor, and a young woman in her 20s with deep hollows beneath her eyes. She moved efficiently but without joy. Hours passed. Sweat pooled at Jacob's collar. Every muscle in his back ached. Then came the moment that hit him in the gut. Rick leaned lazily against the sink, thumbs flicking over his phone, looked up and barked at the woman. "Those carrots from lunch? Don't toss them. Put them in the cooler. We'll reuse them tomorrow." She froze, spatula in hand. "They've been sitting out for hours." "I said put 'em in the cooler," Rick snapped, stepping forward. "Wrap 'em. Label 'em fresh, or you paying out of pocket." Jacob stiffened mid-chop. The woman, her name tag barely legible, Kiara, glanced at the carrots, then at Rick. Her eyes screamed discomfort, but her hands obeyed. Plastic wrap, marker, cooler, done. Jacob's stomach turned. He had heard whispers before about cost-cutting, but seeing it, this blatant disregard for food safety and human dignity, felt like betrayal. Still, he said nothing. Not yet. The shift dragged. Rick stayed idle, while Kiara picked up every dropped task without complaint. The teens tiptoed, fear soaked into the walls. At one point, Jacob watched Rick throw out a tray of burnt wings, then lie to the cashier. "Tell him we didn't get the shipment." Jacob stayed until the final sweep. As the last pan clattered into the sink, Kiara approached, wiping sweat from her forehead. "You did good," she said with a faint smile, "for your first day." He smiled weakly. "Thanks. Do you always deal with that?" His eyes flicked toward Rick. She didn't answer at first. "He's worse when the district guy isn't around." But no one listens. He's been here forever. Untouchable. Jacob nodded slowly. I'm sorry you have to go through that. She shrugged, the kind of shrug that says, this is just my life. It's just a job. Those words landed heavier than he expected. Just a job. The empire his father built, the pride he once carried. It had become just a job to the people keeping it alive. That night, Jacob sat alone in his car, peeled the J name tag from his chest, and stared at it like a symbol of everything he'd missed. The silence in the car was louder than anything he'd heard in the kitchen. The next morning, he arrived before sunrise. The parking lot was still empty, save for an old rusted Nissan. Its side mirror dangled by a thread. Through the fogged glass, he spotted someone curled in the front seat. He tapped the window gently. Chiara startled awake, clutching her bag. He took a step back, hands raised. Sorry, just didn't want you to miss the open. She blinked, then gave a soft, tired smile. Thanks. My heater's busted. Didn't sleep much. He didn't respond, just held the door for her as they walked in. The kitchen smelled stale, yesterday's oil still thick in the air. The lights buzzed with that familiar fluorescent hum. No greeting came from Rick, who strolled in 15 minutes late, holding cheap gas station coffee, shirt still wrinkled from the day before. Start the prep, Rick muttered, heading for the office without eye contact. Chiara scanned the checklist on the wall. We're short on diced peppers and out of burger buns. Rick didn't stop walking. Use the hoji rolls. Cut 'em in half. No one's gonna care. Jacob caught her eye. She didn't flinch, didn't argue, just pulled up her sleeves and turned toward the sink. It was another day, another battle, another moment to survive. Jacob felt the weight of it all pressing in. This wasn't about numbers anymore. This was about people. And if something didn't change soon, his father's legacy would rot from the inside out. The lunch rush hadn't even hit its peak when Jacob noticed a boy, no older than 9, standing near the register, shifting nervously from foot to foot. His wide eyes scanned the chaotic kitchen behind the counter, while his grandmother placed their order. The cashier, a young high schooler named Nalin, moved slowly, his fingers hesitant on the touch screen, dark circles etched beneath his eyes. Behind him, Rick's shadow loomed. You screw this up again, Rick hissed low enough for only the front counter to hear. I'll cut your hours next week. Nalin froze mid-click, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. I'm trying, he said, voice nearly a whisper. Try harder, Rick snapped. You think I'm paying you to stand there and breathe? Jacob watched as the boy shrunk slightly beside his grandmother. Her expression shifted, from surprise to tight-lipped discomfort. She looked around, then caught Jacob's eye. He saw the flicker of concern, then the quiet decision forming in her heart. I'm sorry, she said softly to the teen. Is there someone else we can speak to? Rick stepped forward before Nalin could answer. There's no one else. He's new. You'll get your food. Jacob's hand instinctively moved toward the register. I can help you get the order in. Rick's voice cut sharp. You stay behind the line. You're not paid to talk. The boy tugged on his grandmother's hand, eyes wide. Can we go somewhere else? She didn't hesitate. Yes, baby, we can. They walked out. Rick didn't blink, didn't flinch, as if losing a customer meant nothing at all. After Rick stalked off, Jacob leaned in toward Nalin. You okay? Nalin gave a tight nod, but said nothing. His fingers trembled as he voided the order. Jacob could feel the weight of humiliation hanging over the boy, like a storm cloud just waiting to burst. Back in the kitchen, everything was unraveling. Orders stacked. The fryer screamed in protest. Kiara darted between stations, flipping patties, checking sauces, plating trays, all while Rick stood in the back, deep in an animated phone conversation, laughing, oblivious. Jacob jumped in. "Where's the second cook?" Kiara wiped sweat from her brow. "We don't have one. They quit yesterday." "Put me on grill," Jacob said, grabbing a spatula. "Just call out what you need." She blinked, surprised, but there wasn't time to question anything. She nodded, and the dance began. For the next hour, they moved in sync, like soldiers under fire, fast, focused, and desperate not to fall behind. By 1:30, they'd started to catch up. Jacob's body ached. Grease painted his forearms, and a blister had started forming on his wrist where he'd brushed a hot tray. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Then came the next crack. Rick approached, pointing at the trash. "Why's there a full pan of rice in there?" Kiara didn't flinch. "It sat too long. It's not safe to serve." Rick crossed his arms, voice cold. "That's 10 servings." She didn't look at him. "We can't reheat it. It's against policy." "You don't make those calls," Rick snarled. "That's waste. You toss that much again. You can clock out early." Her jaw tightened. "Then I'll clock out early." Rick stepped closer. His tone dropped, venomous. "You think you're untouchable because you've been here a year. You're not." Jacob set down the spatula with deliberate calm. "She did the right thing." Rick spun toward him. "Did I ask you?" "You didn't have to," Jacob said, voice low but clear. "You're threatening someone for following food safety protocol." Rick's face darkened. "You've been here 2 shifts. You don't tell me how to run this place." Just then, the back door creaked open. A man in a shiny suit jacket and scuffed shoes stepped inside holding a clipboard. Jerry, the district manager. Rick straightened immediately, voice softening, spine straightening. "Hey, Jerry, didn't know you were stopping by." Jerry barely looked up. "Quick check-in. Got a customer complaint yesterday. Food quality." Jacob watched Rick perform. His words came smoother, his tone less venom, more velvet. "Couple hiccups," he said. "Training issues with new staff. Nothing we can't clean up." Jerry nodded, scribbled something on his clipboard, then glanced at Jacob. "You're the new guy?" Jacob wiped his hands. "Yes, sir." Rick stepped in fast. "He's doing fine. Bit mouthy, but we'll break him in." Kiara's face remained unreadable, but her eyes followed every word, memorizing them. "I'll swing by again next week," Jerry said. "Make sure the numbers line up." As soon as the door clicked shut behind him, Rick muttered a curse and slammed a rag on the prep table. Jacob turned to Kiara. "Have you ever reported him?" She didn't look up. "I've tried, but they always say the same thing. He hits his numbers." Jacob said nothing, but inside, something broke. He walked to the back storage room and opened the door. Chaos. Torn boxes, leaking containers, outdated condiments, safety logs buried under bags of bleach. He pulled out his phone and snapped photo after photo. Quiet. Quick. When he returned, Rick was laughing at something on his phone. Narlin, small and silent, scrubbed tables nearby, pretending not to hear. Jacob dried his hands. "I'm taking my break." Rick didn't even look up. Just waved him off. Jacob walked to his car, heart pounding. He picked up his phone and dialed. A voice answered. "Head office." "This is Jacob Whitlow," he said, voice hard. "I need someone from HR and legal at the Indianapolis South Side location within 2 hours. Bring documentation." Silence. Then, "Yes, sir." He hung up and sat still, fists clenched. His father's name was etched on every menu, every receipt, every wall of every location. But this was not his father's legacy. It would end today. Jacob returned just before the dinner rush. The air hummed with fryer buzz and the dull whine of overhead lights. The crew looked drained. Chiara was wiping the prep table, her eyes rimmed red but dry. Nalin stood by the sink, arms crossed tightly, expression hollow. No one spoke. Rick sat in the office now, door open, feet on the desk. A half-eaten bag of chips crinkled beside him. His phone blasted a podcast loud enough to bleed through the hallway. Jacob walked straight past. At the front, a young woman Jacob hadn't seen before wrestled with a jammed receipt printer. "You with Kitchen?" she asked, startled. "Yeah," Jacob nodded. "Where's the shift log?" She pointed toward a clipboard on the wall. "There. Though, Rick doesn't really use it." Jacob flipped through. No notes on food waste, no mention of equipment issues, no record of walkouts. Just Rick's scribbled signature and a time stamp. Every single day. "Thanks," he said quietly. "I'll be on grill." She nodded and returned to the struggling printer. But something had shifted. The silence in the building no longer felt like fear. It felt like anticipation, like the breath before a storm. Back in the kitchen, the temperature hadn't changed, but the atmosphere had. The air hung heavy, not with heat, but with something more suffocating: resignation. Every clatter of a utensil, every beep from the fryer seemed to echo that unspoken truth. No one expected anything better. Nalin, still pale, methodically measured out sauce portions, moving like someone trying not to exist. Chiara hoisted a bulky crate of lettuce onto the prep station, the strain in her arms reflecting the emotional weight she carried. "You sure you're back?" she asked, without lifting her head. "For now," Jacob said, stepping beside her. She sighed. "Saw the line building from the parking lot?" "Yeah." "We're short again," Brianna called out from the front. She didn't even try to hide it anymore. Jacob walked toward the grill and flipped the burner switch. The flame roared to life. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. "Every other day," Chiara replied without pause. "But I've got my sister and her kid at home. Rent doesn't wait for miracles." He nodded. Her words lingered in the air like steam off the flat top. Then he began placing thawed patties onto the sizzling surface. A voice pierced through the rhythm of spatulas and timers. "Hey, you can't just jump in without logging time!" Rick stormed toward them, his voice loud enough to rattle sauce bottles. His arms were crossed, his jaw set. "The system's down," Jacob said without looking at him. "Clock me in manually." "That's not how we do it here," Rick barked. "Then maybe it's time we start," Jacob said, firm and unwavering. Rick blinked, caught off guard. The old script wasn't working. "You think you're running something?" Rick snapped. Chiara straightened up, lettuce knife in hand. "He's doing more than you are." Rick turned, eyes burning. "Watch it." "I'm tired of watching," she said, staring him down. Jacob turned off the burner. The hiss of the flame vanished. "Enough." "You don't tell me what's enough," Rick spat. "I do," said a new voice, steady as stone. Everyone froze. Two people stood at the kitchen door. The first, a woman in her 40s, wore a navy blazer and an expression honed by years of dealing with workplace fires. The second, a younger man with a quiet presence, carried a black folder and wore a company badge clipped to his belt. Rick straightened. "Who are you?" The woman stepped forward. "Aaron Santos, Director of HR. This is Marcus from Compliance." Rick's face twisted. "What the hell is this?" Jacob removed his cap and stepped forward. "I'm Jacob Whitllo, owner." Time seemed to suspend itself. Rick's mouth opened, then closed. Nothing came out. Chiara's eyes widened in disbelief. Nalin stood frozen, sauce cup trembling in his hand. Even the teens who had just walked in for the night shift hovered by the door, stunned. Jacob didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I've been here for 3 days," he said, "and I've seen enough to know this location is broken. Unsafe food practices, falsified logs, staff harassment, customer walkouts. You've turned my father's legacy into a liability." Rick's voice cracked under the weight. "You can't do this. You were pretending. This isn't fair." Jacob cut in. "What's not fair is threatening a worker for throwing out spoiled rice. What's not fair is threatening to cut hours over register mistakes. What's not fair is forcing people to serve food that should be in a dumpster." Aaron stepped forward. "Mr. Rollins, gather your belongings. Your employment is terminated effective immediately." Rick flinched. "You don't even know me." Marcus opened the black folder. "Actually, we do. We have 6 incident reports buried under backlogs, 2 prior warnings from district leads, all documented." Rick looked around the room for allies. None moved. Not Nerlin, not Kiara, not the new kids. He huffed, scoffed, and walked out. No words, no apology. Just silence. A silence that, for once, didn't feel hollow. It felt cleansing. Aaron turned to the team. "We'll be conducting individual interviews over the next 2 days. You'll be paid for the time. If anyone has experienced retaliation or intimidation, we want to hear from you." Kiara stepped forward. "Does that mean things are actually going to change?" Jacob met her gaze. "Yes. Starting now." She nodded once, slowly. Not relief. Not yet. But something close. Maybe trust. As Aaron and Marcus headed to the back, Jacob stayed behind. Narlan finally broke the silence. "You're really the owner?" "I am," Jacob said. He looked around at the tired faces, the still hot grill, the printer spitting out new orders. "I'm not leaving tonight," he added. "We'll get through this shift together." The teens came forward. One, a girl with a streak of green in her bangs, asked softly, "Do we still have to follow Rick's prep list?" Jacob shook his head. "Number, we're writing a new one." She smiled faintly and moved to the sink. Kiara stepped beside him. "You know it's not just Rick. Some of our suppliers, they've been sending us substandard stuff. That rice we tossed? It was clumpy, straight out of the box." Jacob's expression hardened. "Give me the vendor name. We'll audit every contract." She nodded. "Okay." He turned to Narlin. "Did Rick ever actually train you on the register?" "No," Narlin said. "Said I'd learn faster if I just made mistakes." "Well, that ends now," Jacob said. "Tomorrow I'll walk you through it properly." Narlin blinked. "You'd do that?" Jacob smiled faintly. "I'd be a pretty lousy owner if I didn't." The grill sizzled again. Orders kept coming. But something had shifted. The fear was no longer in the air. In its place was something new: control, respect, potential. Kiara leaned on the prep table. "You're gonna need more people." "I know," Jacob replied. "We start hiring Monday. Better pay, better training, real support." She gave a quiet nod, then returned to work. That night, the pace didn't speed up, but it smoothed. The team worked in sync. No barking, no chaos, just quiet precision. And Jacob stayed until the last dish was scrubbed and the final receipt printed. The following Monday, Jacob returned before the sun had risen. The air outside was crisp, grey sky overhead. Inside, the familiar hum of fluorescence welcomed him like an old friend. Kiara arrived minutes later, thermos under one arm, clipboard under the other. She didn't look surprised to see him. "You're early," she said. "I said I'd be here." She nodded. "Prep sheet's different. HR already sent new safety logs. We're tossing anything questionable on site." Jacob walked beside her through the kitchen, the linoleum still chipped, the tables still scarred, but the air clearer. Tighter. Focused. Marcus had returned to confirm Rick's termination. Aaron was retraining staff across the region, and Jacob had kept it all quiet. No press, no emails, just action. "It'll be a tough week," Kiara warned, glancing at her clipboard. "Down 2 line cooks. Brianna quit over the weekend, left her uniform in the sink." "I heard," Jacob said. "I brought someone in. One of our culinary trainers from HQ. He's worked the line before. He'll cover shifts while we hire." Kiara's brows lifted slightly. "From HQ?" "No," Jacob smiled. "From the real world." She exhaled slowly. "All right." By open, Narlin was already at the register, eyes clearer, posture more confident. Jacob joined him. "Let's run a mock order before the first customer." Narlin hesitated. "You have time for that?" "I'm making time." They walked through the process, screen by screen, every button, every model. Narlin asked questions, not out of fear, but curiosity. "This system, it was designed in-house?" he asked. Jacob nodded. "Yeah, we built it to be efficient. But I'm realizing now, it wasn't built to be understood." Narlin tilted his head thoughtfully. And right then, as the doors unlocked and the first real customers of the day walked in, Jacob saw it. The start of something different. Not perfect, but honest and real. "I think a color-coded menu could help," Narlin offered, while wiping down the screen. Red for combos, blue for sides. It had cut down on second guesses. Jacob nodded slowly, thoughtful. "That's a great idea. I'll have the design team mock something up." "You're serious?" "I wouldn't say it if I wasn't." By 11 a.m., the first customers started to trickle in. Orders flowed more steadily than before. Kiara barked out prep times while training Sam, a quiet, earnest 19-year-old who had just joined after the diner he used to work at shut its doors. "You've used a flat top before?" she asked between flipping burgers. Sam gave a shy nod. "Yeah, just never with this many tickets coming in." "You'll get there. Keep your hands clean and your ears open." Jacob remained nearby, jumping in to refill sauces, grab backup gloves and answer questions. He didn't hover, didn't micromanage. He was present, observing, supporting. It still wasn't perfect. Around 12:30, orders jammed, the fryer glitched, and Sam overcooked a full tray of patties. But there was no yelling, no shame, just quiet correction. A customer in a heavy coat approached the counter, visibly irritated. "I asked for no pickles." "There are pickles." Narlin checked the order screen. "I'm really sorry. I'll get a new one started right away." The man huffed. "I don't have time to wait. This always happens at this location." Jacob stepped in before the tension could escalate. "We're rebuilding this team," he said calmly. "But I'll walk your replacement sandwich back myself. You'll have it in under 4 minutes, or it's on the house." The man studied him. "You the manager?" "I'm responsible. That's what matters." The man gave a tight nod. "Just make it hot." Kiara rebuilt the sandwich without a word. Jacob returned with it in under 3 minutes. The customer didn't say thank you, but he didn't complain again either. After the lunch rush, the crew gathered in the back for a rare moment, a real, full-staff break. 15 minutes of silence, water, and shared exhaustion. No one talked at first. They just breathed. Then Kiara spoke. "You still planning to stay through the week?" Jacob leaned back in the chair, stretching sore arms. "I've already cleared my schedule. Got someone else covering my meetings." She glanced at him. Must be nice to have people who actually show up when they say they will. There was no bitterness in her voice, just honesty. Jacob met her gaze. "You've been holding this place together. You deserved that kind of backup months ago." She didn't respond, but she didn't argue either. Just then, Marcus entered with a folder. "Kiara, got 5 minutes?" She stood. "Now's good." As she and Marcus left, Jacob turned to Sam. "How are things so far?" Sam shrugged. "Better than my last job. Nobody's yelling." Jacob nodded slowly. "That shouldn't be the reason to stay." Sam hesitated. "I just need steady hours." "You'll have them. And if you ever want to learn something new, inventory, fryer maintenance, whatever, ask. No more being ignored." The rest of the afternoon moved in rhythm. Jacob rotated through every station again. He wasn't the owner now. He was part of the team. He unclogged the prep sink when it backed up. He replaced the condiment pump when it cracked. By 6 o'clock, the kitchen wasn't flawless, but it was functional, focused. After close, Jacob gathered the crew near the front counter. The lights were dim. The neon "open" sign was now dark. "I owe you all more than a thank you," he said. "This week wasn't about fixing everything in 3 days. It was about seeing what I hadn't before, feeling what you go through. I've seen enough to know. We failed you." No one interrupted. Even the tired teens stood still, listening. "Starting next month, we're launching new training. Not just how to cook faster, but how to lead. Anyone who stays 6 months will qualify for certification. We'll cover the cost." Kiara crossed her arms. "And pay?" Jacob nodded. "Every position will see a raise. No one here will earn less than $17 an hour. And we're setting up a hardship fund. Short-term support for car trouble, housing, medical bills." Sam looked up from coiling the mop cord. "Why now?" "Because I wasn't listening before," Jacob said quietly. "But I am now." No applause, no clapping, just silence. A deep one, the kind where people are still weighing your words. After the others left, Kiara lingered near the register. "You're not what I expected," she said. "I wasn't what I needed to be," Jacob replied. "But I'm working on that." She studied him for a long beat. "You're not going to forget what you saw here, are you?" "Number. And I'm not going to let anyone else forget either." She nodded once. "Good." Jacob locked the door behind her. Outside, the street was empty. The buzz of city lights blinked from the distance. His hand lingered on the glass, palm flat. The building hadn't changed, but the people inside had been seen. Truly seen. And that was the start of everything. Not a PR stunt, not a campaign, just a promise. One he'd keep, in sweat, in time, and this time he wouldn't look away again.